Hello guys, this is Denise,
Deannette.
Perry Hill Farms. We're coming at you with part 2 interview of the history of the land.
Yep.
And we've got a new person to talk to and welcome our friend Mr. Jimmy.
No, he's family.
I'm sorry.
He is practically family.
He is family. Mr. Jimmy, thank you for joining us today, and we are so thrilled to be able to sit here and talk with you and learn about the land that we call now Perry Hill Farms,
Right.
because you knew it way before we ever knew it.
Yeah.
And we share a lot of our history on the farm about, how Granny and Daddy, how we worked and stuff like that. But we don't know anything before we were there.
Right.
We've been there, Jace is 23, so we've been there 21, almost 22 years.
Can you believe that?
I don't believe it. It's just unreal.
21
That y'all been
years.
there that long.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
And so we of course we love it. It's our sanctuary. We tell everybody all the time it's our sanctuary. And one thing you might not know, the one reason we started a YouTube channel was to document things for our kids to see.
Right.
Because I never really took advantage of sitting down talking to my I did talk to them some in the later years, but really videoing and getting evidence and her speaking of things in the past, and I wish we'd done that.
Right.
And so, but God laid it on our heart really to start a series on the history of the land.
Yeah.
And I love history, Denise loves history,
Mhm.
and so that's why we're coming
Yeah.
here to see you. Mr.
Well-
Jimmy is the one, him and his brother that we purchased our homes from. So he grew up on what is now Perry Hill Farms,
Yeah.
that land over that way. And so we're going to find out what it was like when he lived on Perry Hill
Yeah.
Farms,
Yeah.
which was
And
not
mo-
Perry Hill Farms then.
Right, and most of the information we're going to learn may be a replica of what what Mr. Walter shared about, but it is
Right.
going to be a little bit different point of view from your point of view, and so we're excited about it. So, of course, I live in your mom and dad's house. That's probably the house you were raised in, right?
Well, that's the house I moved into at 6 years old.
6 years old.
6 years old.
Wow.
So that's when you came to Battles
To
Road.
Bob's Road.
Okay, but
At that time, I don't think it was. It might have been named Battles Road then.
So your grandmother. Well, let's back up. It was the Haddon that married a Battle.
Right.
Is that right?
No. No. My grandmother Battles, she was a Haddon,
A Haddon. That's right.
married a Battles.
Okay,
that's
she
Sadie?
was Sadie Mae.
Sally Mae.
Sally Mae.
Sally Mae Battles.
Was your grandmother. Now, her home is the home that Deannette and them
Right.
lived in.
That's
lived
where,
in.
and it was right there where the house
Right
is.
where the house is now.
Uh-huh.
Wood frame house.
Mhm.
Big, beautiful house if it had ever been restored.
Right.
My granddaddy was a carpenter, so on up in age when the house started getting a lot of wear and tear on it, he tore the structure down and made it into a 2-room house and built the new house there in front of it.
Wow.
So that explains back behind the house, beside the pecan trees, was we always thought it was an unusual area where it looked like maybe the way the ground is that there was a house there at one time. So just behind where our house is was where the original house
The original house.
And then next
From there toward the road.
right.
And it was just back to back to
Uh-huh.
the new house to the old house of the 2 rooms that they saved to live in.
Wow.
So
From our understanding, was it the Haddon or your grandmother's family owned most of all this
This is
land
120
Yeah,
acres.
yeah.
that
And that's
eventually Mr. Walter's family purchased?
Right.
part of?
60 acres.
Yeah.
and but it was actually my grandmother's half brother Haddon, Dallas Haddon, that had the land, and then he deeded my grandmother Battles her share of the land.
Which was probably 60 acres there.
40 acres.
40 acres, okay.
40 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Mother and Daddy moved out there, built and moved out there in 1960.
Mm.
Then they deeded Mother and Daddy half the property. So
Okay.
that's where the
Okay.
property line come in the
Interesting.
middle.
So it was this is your mother's line
Right.
of family.
Right.
And how long did they, I mean, can you remember how far back they had the land?
Well, no, I don't, because my grandmother battles and granddaddy battles, they had it back years
Yeah,
before.
it's just always been, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know that you remember Mr. Walter talking about, was it 57 that they,
It may have been.
Well, that's when your mom and dad's house was built in 57.
okay,
I know that for
Right,
sure because
right.
that's what we were told when we bought the home. It was
okay.
Yeah.
built in 1957.
Yeah.
Now, so Mr. Walter shares that at early times that this was just a straight dirt road.
Straight dirt road.
You remember it?
Remember it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember backing up that hill in reverse in Granddaddy's truck many times because couldn't get it up the road and
So going this hill
going
right
this
here,
hill up
up
here.
to the stop
To the
sign.
stop
Got
sign.
you.
They couldn't get up the road driving straight, so they put it in reverse and back up it because
Isn't
they had
that
more
funny?
traction.
Right,
Isn't that funny?
right.
And they
Yeah.
could get up the road that way.
He shared some information about where Eford's Grocery used to be,
Mhm,
and when they built this Avon Road,
Right,
where the stop sign is,
right.
the Battles Road meets, and
It used to always be dirt road, and then
so you remember that
I
time.
remember that time.
So what were your thoughts when they were coming in and making these roads? Were you guys, I mean, Mr. Walter says it helped you guys tremendously travel to like Ashford and places. So were y'all excited about
Oh,
that,
yes.
or like, oh my gosh,
No, it was definitely-
civilization is coming out this way and we don't want it?
It was definitely excitement to see
Uh-huh.
that change,
Right.
because we knew that it was going to make it easier.
Right.
Right.
And it was definitely exciting.
So you mentioned that your dad was a carpenter.
My granddaddy.
Your
Bible.
granddaddy was.
Granddaddy
Okay,
Bible.
your granddaddy was a carpenter. Excuse me.
Mhm.
And so was your grandmother? She
Yeah,
just a stayed home.
When I first moved out here,
Mhm.
grandmother stayed at home. My mother stayed at home. My daddy actually, when my first remembrance of it, when I come out here, they all farmed. None of them worked. They farmed
Right.
together
Right.
and farmed the property, all
Cotton.
behind y'all,
Mhm.
and then across the road where the houses are now.
Mhm.
That was all all land that they raised cows and hogs,
Right.
and then would farm it for peas and butter beans and things like that.
So in some of the pictures that Mr. Walter had, it looked like there were not many trees. You know what
There
I'm saying?
was not.
It was a lot of farmland. He talks about
There
how
was.
Battles Road at one time before it was paved come between it come between the barn and his parents' house at one time, and then they moved it to go behind the barn. I guess to come some way this way of some sort. Do you ever remember a road coming?
I don't remember going
Right,
back behind.
right,
I
right,
do remember it coming in front,
right.
but that's the first remembrance of me.
So you were 6 years old when y'all come out here, and the house that I'm in was the house that your parents built. And was your grandmother then still alive?
They were still alive.
So you got to live beside your grandmother. What was that like?
Oh, it was great because I'd get off the school bus every afternoon and stay with my grandmother.
She
In
loves
her house.
that. She loves that idea because her grandkids are right across
I
the
know,
street.
exactly.
It's like a generational blessing or of some
Yeah.
sort, because what the land was to you, that area is really what Perry Hill has become now.
Yeah.
Is it's a family
Right.
land. My grandkids, my daughter lives across the road, so they're there at all times, and Jason and Lauren just live not too far up the road, and
Well, so it was you and your brother, right?
Well, two brothers.
Two brothers.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, Kevin was the baby, but
Okay.
it was actually me and Don there in the older years because Kevin was 8 years younger than me. Even,
Right.
yeah, I think it was just a little older than us.
So that made him 12 years younger than Don.
Yeah.
But getting back to the school bus deal, I knew I could always get off there every afternoon and go, even though mother was at home, I'd go through grandmother's house because I always knew she had a platter of bacon fried on the stove. And I'd get me some bacon and eat it.
Was that from hogs she raised?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, from hogs that raised just like y'all did.
So where was the hog pen located?
Had it at different places. Had it out there behind where y'all were at. Sometimes it was across over where the houses are now.
Where Erica
Had an area there. Cows, they mainly kept on this side of the road. And mostly all the time the hogs stayed on that side.
Well, I do remember when we bought your mother's house, there was, looks like a horse, might have been a horse pen or a pig corral, something right behind, directly behind the house where our raised beds are right now. There was something there that we had to tear down. Some type of pen structure. I don't remember what.
Yeah,
I
remember calling it
yes. That was where the hogs were right there.
Under the
And
oak tree.
they went under the pens under the pine trees there. Right at the edge of the pine trees.
I remember, and I think
that.
about how crazy I was. Do you remember calling it up in that thing?
What thing?
All
pen?
those collapsed pens. I don't know why I just remember vividly crawling up in there looking to see what was in there.
I did the barn, your grandmother's old barn.
I think, how crazy was I? You know, snakes. Y'all know how we love snakes.
Now the barn that was tore down, it was in bad shape when y'all got there, but after y'all tore it down. But that was the tomato barn. That's where we cleaned tomatoes, and back then we had to clean tomatoes, wipe each one of them down, and pack them.
So you sold
and
them.
all that property, the property that y'all use for garden area and farming right behind you, is where my granddad had tomatoes.
Wow.
And we haven't been able to grow tomatoes in the ground over there. The raised beds have done well, but
he grew tomatoes and sold them. So y'all had
every
to
year.
package them and sell
Had
them.
to pack them every summer.
Did he have a business, a farm name that people just knew were going to?
Well, they just knew each other when they go to the sale.
Everybody knew. Yeah.
Everybody knew.
So he
each
did
other.
a farmer's market. Where was that at? Was that in Ashford?
Farmer's market. He'd go to Dothan,
Oh.
which was out on the Ashford Cowarts Road.
Yeah.
And if I think there's a wood factory there now.
Wow.
But if he couldn't get his price there, he'd pack up and go to Birmingham.
Wow. That's fascinating. We didn't know that. So that barn was mostly
tomato barn.
Now,
and then back before that, when they had mules and horses or whatever, and they did have those, they would keep those stalls in there.
Yeah, on each side. I remember that.
On each side, that's where they keep the mules and the horses at.
I remember that. So I can remember, there was an old syrup kettle in there. Did your grandfather do? Now I know over at Mr. Walter's house they have the cane extractor,
the press.
Right.
The press. Did they help each other
Yes.
in collecting sugar cane and then extracting it? And maybe that syrup kettle that I was I can't say oopid stay, so that I got rid of. Absent-minded. There it goes. that I let some antique person come in and take it.
Yeah.
Do you know my daddy almost disowned me over that? No, I'm just kidding.
I like to disown you over it.
I had no idea. I had no.
Yeah.
Gosh, we were young when we came.
At that time, I really didn't know
Right.
what it would be worth.
Right. We.
Now I've got the pot. I have myself, but the syrup kettle got gone.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That barn was very fascinating. There was a lot of stuff. We
A lot of stuff
found
in
mason jars and
tile. The tile.
See, that was my granddad. He would collect the stuff from houses. And they built.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's where the
that's where the
carpets
tile
go.
So
from.
do you know I pulled out white tile from there, and it has been my backsplash on my stove.
That's what you got on the backsplash.
Since we've lived there, we
So
repurposed it.
Now the only thing that I have probably from that barn would be that we had a friend come by and got some wood and made a birdhouse out of the tin and the wood.
Yeah.
And
She's
some
supposed
of
to make me one.
Yeah.
Well, it never happened.
So it was a barn on my property that Denise got.
Got materials.
I'm just kidding.
What's yours is mine. What's mine is yours. Haven't we always said that? Well,
Yeah.
except for husbands, we don't share those.
No, I
Disclaimer there.
I was. It was in hopes that she would make me another one, but she never had. That's been 20 years ago. So, but that's okay.
Now in grandmother and granddad's house, you know, they didn't have any indoor plumbing other than a sink that they had water coming to.
Mm-hmm.
But the outhouse was right out your back door.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine now.
So it was a man-made outhouse,
Man-made
probably with a big old barrel down in the ground and holes in it, maybe.
Sure. You know, I never went digging around.
I know. I would wondered to say if you could do some excavating, you might could find some remnants of that metal. I'm sure.
Well, I do remember it set on a cement slab. That the later in years they made a cement slab around it. And, you know, just a 4x4 slab, like, you know.
So what would it be? Because I'm curious. Would it be to the left of the driveway where the crepe myrtle little trees are? Because we uncovered a man-made well there. That had it was cylinder box, and then it didn't have a cover. It had the bed of a truck.
No,
or the frame
hood of a truck.
The hood of a truck on the top of it. When we started having some septic issues, and I was like, this is a man-made well.
Male or septic tank?
Septic tank.
Not well.
Not well, septic tank.
Man-made septic tank.
So I wondered, did it sit to that side or was it more behind the house? It's probably been a long time.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
It might have been to that side.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I just remember it sitting up there, you know.
And it's and the cylinder blocks in that septic tank. What did I say?
Cylinder.
Cinder
blocks.
My goodness. Is Phyllis Dillard?
Yeah, I know. She
kidding.
says all kinds of words.
Yeah.
We're becoming our mother, that's what we're doing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, our mother.
But it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still on the ground. We just covered it up. And it sits right there. That's interesting.
Now, most of the remnants of the barn is buried also. We did dig a big hole and because it was just so much stuff to be able to excavate and take off. We just
clean up, clean out.
We just dug a deep hole, buried it, and we're going to let the earth do something with it.
Well, we took all the metal stuff out.
Yeah.
I think that wouldn't break down. And hauled it off, but all that could decompose, we buried a hole.
Right.
So you were there. You got off the bus, got your bacon.
Got my bacon. Went home.
So
did the homework.
So your child memories of course, a lot of it was farming for your family. Did you have to do a lot of that too, you and your brothers?
Yeah, I remember picking cotton. I was young enough to get to pick a little cotton, old enough to get to pick a little cotton.
Yeah. So how was that experience? Because my daddy shares a lot of experience about picking cotton, and he hated it.
Yeah, I hated it too, but that was one of the worst spankings or whippings that I ever got in my life. When one day Daddy one morning sent us to the cotton patch. And when he got there, I wasn't in the cotton patch. I was in the woods playing. So I got a good spanking from that.
Didn't you? Dad would say.
And it didn't feel good with a cotton stalk.
Ooh, I bet not. And I remember my grandmother picking a switch one time and spanking me with a switch, and that was one I never forget. That stone.
But I remember the cotton. You know, it seemed like it grew 12 foot tall back then, because it was always over my head, you know. But
you don't see it that high anymore.
No, you don't ever see it that high anymore.
Makes you wonder.
But it used to be tall, real tall cotton.
Yeah.
And pick peanuts, then they'd have peanuts back there, and the old timey peanut picker. I don't know, was it still there under the pecan trees?
Now let me tell you, there's still some old remnants of farm equipment and plows, and the old corn shucker. We still have. There's a lot of stuff, pieces of stuff that we have found throughout all over the property there that we've just kind of stuck
in the barn.
Because I'm sure.
You're just hang on to
nostalgic.
Exactly.
So you talk about cows.
Mhm.
You talk about hogs.
Mhm.
Of course, you probably had
Most of
chickens.
those were just raised for our use.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
yeah, they didn't farm cows and hogs. But,
Yeah.
So dairy is probably what you had.
mhm.
Dairy cows.
Mhm.
Did you have
Dairy
to?
cows,
Did you have to milk?
milk cows.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I got a little bit of that, but not much.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we have two,
Yeah.
and the mama we don't milk, but her daughter,
Right.
she's more Jersey than she is Dexter, and she gives us great milk. So October Grace,
Yeah.
she's the blonde one you'll
Yeah.
see out there, and she's good to us. In fact, I
Yeah.
got her pinned up today.
Yeah.
We'll milk her this evening and get us some
Okay.
milk, and that's
So
something.
what-
I noticed you've had several calves drop lately.
We had
had
three.
Really?
So far, we're looking at 2 more. We think at least one of them should be pregnant. You don't, it's hard to keep a watch on when our bull.
Oh, he likes
does
to operate in the dead of night.
Yeah, we're
And I'm not
sleeping when
saying
he's
that-
busy.
I'm not staying up all
But
night.
we think he was able to at least get a breed one of ours, one more of them. So we're just kind of waiting to see if she's going to drop something.
Mhm.
If not, I guess we'll put him back in and
Good
let
man,
him
yeah.
breed all of them again. But
Yeah.
we have
That's good.
3
Now,
steers.
that's from one of the bulls, one of the calves that y'all raised.
Well, he
Yes,
is our
yes.
first. He is our very first second artificial insemination cow. October Grace, the milk cow,
Right.
was our first year. We did a April dropped her.
Mhm.
None of the
And
others
we inseminated her with a Jersey semen.
didn't. Babe have Trump that same year?
Trump.
No, we didn't have 2 AIs. Okay, so we
No.
only had one. Every year that we've done the
We've
artificial
only had
insemination,
one successful.
we've
egg.
only had one successful.
And so the next year we contacted the same guy who has a Red Angus farm,
Alan Webb.
and we said he came and he inseminated, and we only got one. That's where we got Trump.
Mhm.
He brought in Red Angus semen from a bull named Redemption, and he was absolutely gorgeous.
Right.
And we did that with Babe, one of our reds, and
So now we have a full blooded.
she dropped him, and he's our full blooded
Oh,
Red
he
Angus,
is
and so
beautiful.
he's like prize. That's why we
Yeah.
named him Trump, because we said he was going to make the farm great
Farm
again.
great.
So he actually, this is his first year. He's a little over 2 now.
So the 3 that we have now are his.
Yeah.
And we have October Grace dropped a girl, and then April, my black cow, Dexter, she dropped a boy, and then of course one of the reds,
Me
girl,
Right.
dropped a red. So we have 3 red babies.
Yeah.
And one of them, of course, is purebred Red Angus,
Right.
and then the others are, of course, mixed.
Now we do
Jersey
have 3
mixture.
steers in the pen with Trump now that
Right.
we banded, and we're raising them up to process for meat.
yeah.
So and they were from Mr. Chip's. No, I
No,
apologize.
Beast.
They were
We
from
rented
we rented
a Black Angus.
Black Angus bull that stayed 3 months, and he dropped.
Right.
We all black,
Right.
and so we sold some, and we kept these 3 to raise for meat. So we are getting to the point now. She's snoring.
Snoring.
We didn't introduce her.
That's Dixie, right?
This is Dixie.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
she's,
We
She's
failed to
great.
introduce Dixie.
isn't she doll baby?
She's
She's
sweet.
spoiled. That's what she
She
is.
is spoiled.
But she's a good companion, isn't she?
She stays right beside me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this year should be our year to really produce some Red Angus beef
Right.
to sell. We hope so.
Yeah.
So as far as back to the farm for you, cows, hogs. Of course, you probably had chickens.
Mhm.
Any other animals that you guys got to raise on the farm? Was that pretty much
That was
it?
pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, goats were probably not a thing.
Goats wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
They've just kind of come.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as far as the pond, your grandfather or your dad built that.
The front pond.
The
The
front
front
pond.
pond. Your
Front
who-
pond. Actually, it was part of the bay pond.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but that area, and it was all trees all in there.
Right.
And Daddy decided he wanted to build a catfish pond.
I
so
figured that's what that was.
that's when he dammed up the area there
Right.
and made the front pond into
Uh-huh.
a catfish pond.
Uh-huh. And so, I know we've talked to you before, but that back pond was spring fed from
Yes.
Cowler's Creek. Spring. So you grew up swimming in that pond?
Oh yeah, we swam in it.
Was it
Yeah.
always the black water, or was it more clear early on?
No, it was black water still up when we swam in it.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like all the neighbors' kids around here come to the, to the bay pond down there to swim.
That's what y'all call it, was the bay
The bay pond, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
probably what, about
And
3
it got
acres now?
named Blackwater. I don't know if y'all ever.
No.
No.
But a friend of mine, Frank Sumner, well, y'all know Frank, from the hospital, medical center.
I think I do.
Computer.
I do remember.
Him and his son, well, Frank before his son was even born, loved to come fishing, and we let Frank come fishing in it, and he named it Blackwater, and we just went with that.
Blackwater Pond.
And then his son come along, and then Frank would bring his son out, and we'd all fish together, and they just loved it, and so he was raised up fishing in that pond.
Wow.
And,
Interesting.
Probably about 3 acres, 4 acres, 5
Yeah, I
acre
would
pond,
imagine.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty big
Well,
pond.
I hope it comes back. I hope we get enough rain to get it.
Well, it hasn't completely dried up. There was
Yeah.
one year before we cleared all the trees out,
Yeah.
but it dried completely.
Well, there
up.
was just a little hole that didn't go.
The deepest hole is out on Mom's End,
Right.
and right out from her where her dock is, but it's held on right now.
Yeah, I
it's
hope it
not
keeps holding.
right. Well, we've talked about going back over there and trying to find the spring opening and reopening. I know that when Dad cleared that out, we did find it trickled a little bit,
Right.
and so for 20 years it held good water.
Right.
And so this is the
For
not 20 years.
I was just say, where'd you get 20
when
years?
we cleared the land, from the time we cleared all that land, it stayed
It's
full.
held. Yeah.
So what's your thoughts when you saw us clearing all that? How did you feel about all that? Because I'm sure it was a lot of memories out there.
I don't know. I was sort of skeptical to start with. Because I sort of said, I like to see the nature stay like it was. But then when your daddy got through with it, and you got the grass growing over there, I said, hey, this is beautiful.
It's an absolutely beautiful place. I mean, when you drive down this road and the sunset is setting in the background, Daddy's favorite place, and we've shared this before, that oak tree out in this pasture here, we call the James tree.
Right.
Because it was Daddy's, one of his favorite oak trees. He loved live oaks. And that, when he bought that land behind us, he went out there and marked every tree that he wanted to save, and a lot of them were live oak trees. And so he liked that one on this side. And so when we cleared, he made sure that one stayed. But his favorite spot was to back up on the terrain in this pasture and just sit on his golf cart, look at the sunset, look at that tree, and listen to his cows chew cud. And that was his favorite spot. So when we go down, anytime you see us sitting on the golf cart on the side of the road, it's because we're reminiscing about about Dad and his favorite spot. That's the place we feel closest to.
And you could tell that was farmland because of the terrain.
Yeah. And it used to be terraces all out there.
Right.
And definitely talking about that hill, I can imagine. Yeah, with it just being dirt road.
And, it used to be a lot steeper than that until they come in and paved it and they cut it down some.
Yeah.
But it was a really pretty steep hill.
Yeah.
We get our bicycles up on top, we just fly down that hill.
Absolutely. So, from what I understand, if I remember correctly, when the house that I live in now was built, some of the wood they used to build
You used to build a house.
was part of your grandparents' house. Exactly, because we remember
when he
gutting that house and going, my stars, if it ever catches on fire, we're in trouble. Because it's got some hard lighter wood.
Yeah.
But all that come from, where they blocked off and made the 2 rooms, everything that he tore down from the rest of the house, he used it in the
They
new house.
repurposed stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And nothing went to waste back then, did it?
Wow. So growing up, you farmed?
No. Well, he helped his
Or
parents.
helped your parents farm?
And your grandparents.
And all. The tomato barn. and all of that. What are some of the other memories you have?
Well, you know, I
living
wasn't very old. Like I say, I was 6 years old when I moved there, and it wasn't. I don't know, a couple of years maybe. That after that my daddy quit farming, and he come out and went to work with Son and Packing Company.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Is that how y'all got started in the grocery, you think?
Pretty much him and Don, my oldest brother, starting at 13 years old, bagging groceries, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But pretty much Daddy was working with Son and Packing Company, driving a truck, delivering. And so he did that for years. And finally he worked his way into the office and like billing clerks and all, billing out everything.
Right.
So he did that for the rest of us till his retirement. You know? So
And your mom and dad's
mother-
names were
Eloise.
Eloise and Edwin Johnson.
Edwin Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay.
And mother went to work with First Alabama Bank, and worked there. She till her retirement. She had a medical retirement.
But she was Sally Mae's daughter.
Right.
Okay, that's
Only,
okay.
Yeah, Sally Mae's daughter.
Okay.
Only livings. Now they had one that they lost.
That's what.
So how did it come about? Did they approach them? Do you even remember about naming that road, Battles Road? Or is that
I
something
don't.
that your grandmother they just called it Battles
They
Road?
just named it.
Yeah,
They just named it that way.
that's
you know.
interesting.
You know, never did I know that they would approach them about it, but they were naming road, changing names of roads and naming roads. And
Right.
they come up with putting Battles Road on that. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so we know that it was your grandparents that originally came, but before then, you don't
He said earlier, he could.
Yeah.
could recall
He just always remembers them being here.
Yeah.
them being here.
Now I do
Right.
remember where we were at before we came here. You know where Chip lives, Chip Farmer lives. There was a wood frame house right there.
Interesting.
That's where we lived before the house was built down here.
Wow.
So you've always been in this area.
Right.
It wasn't like you moved away and come back.
No.
Right. And Miss Ann, is she from?
She's originally from Mariana.
They married Florida girls. Mr. Walter,
Miss
you know,
Helen.
Miss Helen
Well,
was
and she's from
Al-
Clarksville, right in that area.
right in that area, Alpha and all that area. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But Ann's originally from Mariana, and then her daddy was a pastor, so they moved around a lot. And then she, after she was grown, and her and her first husband, they both relocated from that area to Blakely. And then I met her in Blakely after they divorced. I had divorced. And we had one day together, and we just were both early in a divorce. Didn't see or talk to each other for a whole year.
Oh wow.
Went our separate ways, you know, and did our thing. And so I just happened, so I said, well, I'm gonna see if I can locate her.
That's something.
By that time, she had moved from Blakely back to Mariana. She was doing insurance then, you know.
Right.
Been doing insurance all this time. And she was working with the insurance company down there on Main Street in Mariana. And
It's hard to find people back then. You
Yeah,
didn't have
I'm
Facebook to
telling you.
hunt up.
No,
You had to travel.
well, luckily I knew some people that knew her. So
Yeah, that's cool.
they told me where she was at. But anyway, I called her back up and asked her for a date. We went out and we've been together ever since.
That's awesome. Now, Miss Ann would be here, but she is working today.
Yeah.
So we hate that, but I'm sure she has some memories she could share
Yeah.
also. So you lived here and until you married Miss Ann, or you were married before.
Married
So
before.
you got
when
married.
I got married, graduated high school in '72. Married in '74. I was cutting meat with what used to be Woodham's IGA in Dothan, and got married to a girl, and we come out and had a mobile home across the road right
Sister, we might have seen him.
Of course I
You know how many times we walked to that store?
Yeah.
From where we lived at 5 years old, and take our Coke bottles.
Well, Woodham's IGA would be on.
No, by Ridgecrest. It was called Woodham's, wasn't it, right there? Is that the one?
It was at one time.
Or was it Stevenson Smith?
No, by Ridgecrest, that's Stevenson Smith.
Yeah.
Okay, where was Woodham's?
Woodham's is where Cherokee.
Cherokee
Okay.
was a Woodham store.
Mhm.
The one on South Oaks was a Woodham
That's
store.
right. Yes.
And then the one there on Columbia Highway, which is Grocery Outlet now, was a Woodham store.
So a little history here. So Mr. Jimmy just mentioned that he worked in the meat departments. Well, that's how Stumpy met Mr. Jimmy.
Yeah.
Stumpy worked with Mr. Jimmy for many years. Ran his meat market. The store that he
IGA.
It was
Y'all,
an
you
IGA.
guys. There's still some around.
an
Yeah.
IGA
Mhm.
in Ashford. And so for many years, Eric worked for Mr. Jimmy. And I think Eric just put a bug in Mr. Jimmy's ear that anytime you get ready to sell those houses over
Yeah.
there, we would be interested.
Yeah.
And so that's how we came upon our property.
Right.
Two houses.
The two houses. And when we've shared before, I know that when Denise first walked into her house, she was like, "This is not my dream home." And
No offense against your parents.
Yeah.
But I was a young girl,
Right.
expecting to have.
Well,
we've
you-
been married
And things
for
had been
10 to 15 years, and I was ready to have a.
things were more modern than it was when you walked in there.
absolutely. And so,
There was a lot of history in that
Yeah.
home when we bought it.
Mhm.
A lot of history.
Right. in both homes,
Yes. And so it was pretty. It's pretty fascinating to
right?
to
So-
remodel and find
It's
that
just
history.
amazing what y'all done to them.
Right. Right. Well,
I still have a dream, Mr. Jimmy, and I tell that joke all the time because my husband told me that day I walked in and I said, "This is just not. I don't have peace about this." He says, "See the vision, see the dream, see the potential." And I went to bed that night and I prayed to the Lord and I said, "Lord, if this is where you want us to be, then you have to change my heart." And I have to say, no lie,
the next
overnight I woke up with a
With a change.
just a huge amount of peace
Yeah.
for that place.
Mhm.
And I'm still seeing the potential after 22
Right,
years. I
right.
still have visions that my
Right.
husband now is like, "Do you really want me to work another 15, 20 years to pay for all that?" But I'm still seeing the vision. Anyway, but God knew that we needed to be in that home. Deannette and them need to be next door.
Right.
Mom and Dad bought the land
Bought the
behind us
land,
several
right.
years afterwards.
Right.
Mhm.
God knew the direction that needed to be done,
Exactly.
and He worked that out in such a way that we look back now and we're just mind boggled.
Right.
That
Well,
that-
hindsight's always 20/20, and you really, when you're in the moment, you really don't understand why the why.
Yeah.
And of course, us being twins, we knew we were going to be near each other because we had already tried living apart,
Yeah.
and that just didn't work, did it, sister?
No,
And so many people don't know how to take that relationship, do they, sister?
most of them don't. They're fascinated by it, but they're but they're also like, "Oh, I could never
Yeah.
do that." You know,
Well, it's-
that-
It's just amazing that y'all, the way y'all get along and
Yeah.
interact.
Denise and I, we always joke about we come into this world together.
Yeah.
We're going out
so when you
together.
graduated high school and you married,
Yeah.
that's when you moved away. Did you
my,
all?
my mobile homes there were your daughter's house is now.
Mhm. I remember there being a double wide there
Mhm.
when we bought that house, but that was Bill and
And
Tammy's.
Tammy Richards.
They purchased the land from you.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I remember.
Acre land there. I sold that to them,
Uh-huh,
and then y'all's daughter bought
the
house and the property.
So the
from
one
there.
right across from me.
Whose house was
How
that?
did that?
That
house
was
come in?
originally Don's house.
Oh,
That
The
was
brother.
originally
he's lived in
Don's
3
house.
homes on this property.
Exactly, and that house is also built out of
Wood
lumber from
How interesting is
all that
that?
land back there. We used to roam all the time in the woods back behind it. And that's where I did all my hunting and
Uh-huh.
squirrel hunting, bird hunting, and back then quail was prominent. We could always shoot quail out around
Right.
here.
Now, so the existing barn that we have now on the back of the property, at what time was that built? Because that was y'all's barn.
The back part of it, I don't know. It was in relation to
Yes.
everything else.
Right.
Right.
The front part I added on.
Oh wow.
Okay.
I can't remember when that was. But it
I
had-
stand in that barn and look at the rafters and just see the work. So
Yeah.
you built that.
Well, I not my hands myself. I had it built.
Mhm.
So, but where the stalls were in the back, there was a platform on the back side, and there were doors that you could walk in.
There's an old barn that you built to the
I built
existing
up
old
to
barn.
the old barn.
Okay, so we did away with the
old
old
barn.
old barn.
Yeah,
And we just the
old
part you added is what's
right,
standing
it's
now.
what's standing now.
And we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stalls.
5 stalls.
And that's where we put October Grace. She knows she's trained to walk right in there into a stall. There's a stanchion in there. She gets fed in. We milk her on a concrete slab. We milk her. We can take her in anyway. There's a door into the back pasture. She can come right in there. But when we separate her, we put her in a little goat pen. So I can open that goat pen and say, "Come on, October Grace," without a lead, and she walks straight into the barn around all the equipment, and she knows right where to go because she knows she's gonna get her some good feed.
So that back barn, do you remember what its purpose was before growing up? Do you remember anything?
In the middle was what they called a crib.
Right, I remember that.
The sides was used for stalls. So I'm assuming there was livestock.
We've
on
got
that
pictures
side,
of
too.
that renovation. I mean, of us working on that at some point in
I
somewhere.
don't remember.
Yeah, I can remember very vividly.
So I know at some point in time it had to be the mules had to be on that side of the house at some time.
But it turned into a storage place because
Yes.
I think we found old TVs or something.
Yeah, just
A bunch of stuff in there.
from all of us.
From years of accumulation, right?
Accumulation.
Right.
Carry it to the barn.
Yeah, that's the way we do it. So you had the mobile home across the street.
Had a little home across the street.
So
Where this house is sitting now was always my dream place.
oh wow.
From Mother and Daddy. Mother and Daddy actually deeded every son an acre of land, and this was my place that I'd always, when I was growing up, there was a pasture across from where the 2 houses are now.
Right.
But then on the back side was the wooded area, and I'd always come through the pasture. It seemed like it would take forever back then.
Yeah.
And come through the woods, I'd hunt squirrels in the wood, and I'd come through over here. There was always some good quail hunting in between.
Right.
This was pasture. Well, it was not taken in for pasture, but it was just a open area right here where the house is.
Right.
And pretty much the way it is now, the wood line,
In and there's a little feeder pond or something that fills up every once in a while, doesn't it? Behind Walter's house.
Behind Walter's house, and I've got a little area down here that fills up every once in a while. My dream was always to dig that out and make me a pond, but I've never made that yet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow.
But,
Well, that's what
and on the other side of the house was nothing but solid woods
Wow.
that belonged to the sink fields. And eventually they come in and cleaned out all the trees
into
there.
cow pasture.
But I just love my house. Just sort of sit in a.
It's beautiful here. It sits off the road.
Yeah.
You can't hear the traffic come by. Very
right.
peaceful. Right. Nice.
So, would there be anything that you would change about your upbringing on this hill? Anything that you want your kids to know about this place? I mean, your kids are grown; they're all adults, of course. Now, they got their own children and stuff. So, anything that you would share, or anything?
Well, yeah, I have loved my life here. Never had any regrets of staying here. Could have went on well and did it. If you want to go to college, we'll see how you fit some way to get you there.
Right.
I said no. I don't really want to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I
college is not for everybody.
had developed a trade, and that trade furnished me a good life.
Provided you with a very good life. Sure did. It's
That's
provided my family with a good life as well.
Exactly.
That's true.
And it was a tiring trade because we had to work hard.
Right.
But
Right.
I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I thank God for everything. He's brought me through some tough times.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I really thank God for it.
Thank you.
So, as far as your thoughts, because it seems to be the common conversation we have with a lot of people right now, is that do you hear my tummy growling?
I didn't know that was you.
It's my tummy
The
growling.
mic might be
Dixie
ticking.
was
I hadn't
snoring.
had breakfast this morning yet.
I didn't know that was you or Dixie
That's
snoring.
me. That's me. is that there are a lot of young people, like, okay, so in their early 20s, we've had a couple of young mothers come to us, or not all mothers, but young people come to us and say they really want to learn more about
self-sustaining life,
having a self-sustaining lifestyle, growing a garden, of canning, of putting up your own food and stuff. And look at her stretch. Go girl, that feels so good, don't it? Oh, that's good stuff. So, I mean, would you agree that in this day and age it's important for these young people to learn about providing for themselves?
Most definitely.
Because it is I think we went through a period where it seemed like it was a dying thing.
Yes.
I think 2020, the year of 2020, really opened the eyes of a lot of people, and particularly one that we just did a jelly making class with. She said, and she said that year scared me. She said I couldn't get stuff that I needed.
Right.
And she said, I don't ever want to have that feeling again, not being able to provide for my boys. Yeah. And so, you know, that's another series we do, teaching the next generation. And, you know, we have done a class on butchering pigs, and we're doing another one at Keepers of the Old Ways. Come
at Landmark in March, they'll have an event. Yeah. And they're just trying to teach the basics of how people can survive and maybe not rely on government so much. You know.
I'll take you back to one thing. Back when my mother, she passed away in '96. Well, when we started cleaning out the house, Daddy had died in '94. She had 3 freezers full of stuff. She had cabinets that was full of canned goods. And when we cleaned all that stuff out, figs, grape jellies, you know, apple jellies, just everything, and then vegetables in the freezer. Of course, most of that come over here. Don got some, Kevin got some, but most of that come over here. And we have, just in the last few years, got through eating all of our canned goods. It's lasted
There's
that
somebody
long.
else that we talked to that said that they still had some of their grandmother's products. I can't remember who that was. I don't know. That's pretty fascinating.
That is, do you know when I don't know if you remember, there's a fig tree behind our house. Was that one Kevin planted, or is that one that...
No, that was one that was there originally.
We still gather figs from it.
Yeah, and we pick figs there every year. And they pick fig preserves.
Yeah. Now let me just tell you though, all over that land are potato vines. You know what I'm saying? You know when I say potato vines, those wait a minute vines that come out and grow and everything. You know, they have these big, huge roots. And I don't know if you remember the azalea bushes that were in the front yard. And we dug them up. I'm talking, there was a potato root that big.
Good.
That big. And there's a potato root that I've dug up that was around that fig tree as well. But we've heard previously that, you know, that people used to eat those potato roots. You know, but they grow these thorny vines that goes all over your trees. It's just, and so they have wait a minute vines while Eric said, because when you get a hold of it, or it gets a hold of you, it's like, wait a minute. You know?
I've never dug down and realized they had roots like that.
Wow. So as far as the addition on the back of the house where I live at, the length that, so that your parents put that on pretty much for storage, to store.
And as a sewing room for mother, she had a sewing room back on the far end of it, and then it was put on for storage.
Wow.
You know. And I don't remember what year that was. But that's
well, that's one item that I would like to remove so I can make a big back porch.
Right.
I
would be able to look out the kitchen.
Right.
And to the back of the property. And of course that carport part.
Have you been in? You've been in the house since they've renovated it back up to the kitchen to the original spot.
Yeah.
Now that was fascinating when we did that, because we got to see some of the old. There was green tile of some sort, or a faux tile on the wall where the old kitchen was. was pretty neat
Yeah.
to see some of that
See
stuff.
all that stuff,
Mhm.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
so she had a sewing room back
Yeah.
there.
She did. She sewed, did a lot of sewing, and
That's
of
interesting.
course after she went to work with First Outlaw Bank, she pretty much
Had to stop.
put that aside. But
Right.
unless she just needed me in something,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But,
Well, that's fascinating.
Well, it's been really good talking to you and reminiscing about that land.
Yeah.
We
I
are
enjoyed it.
we are so grateful that Mr. Jimmy, that you heard Stumpy say he wanted that,
Well,
and we couldn't have picked a
Better place.
better place to plant ourselves and to raise our children. You know, we tell the story all the time that when we were remodeling your mom and dad's house when we
Yeah.
bought it, it was foggy one night and the kids were out on the side playing out there close to the pond.
And there was a light pole on that dam.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
And it was foggy and the cows were moving across the street. The kids didn't know what those were, come running in screaming because they didn't know what. And we realized real quick at that moment we needed to get our kids out on the farm and get them to learn about nature because they were too citified. So, but we're grateful that we planted ourselves here.
And
that's
this is
a-
the area that I know my kids want to stay.
Yeah.
They've made it known.
Have they? That's
They've
great.
made it known that they don't want anyone else to get a hold of any of that property that we have. And that's not family, you know, and they want to stay true to Dad's dream and our dream and learn. Even Erica's husband wants to, you know, he's stepping up trying to learn
Right. Well, that's good.
how to garden
That's good.
and stuff like that. So
Well, I told, I knew when, after you and Eric come out here, and then Eric and Denise was looking at coming out, I knew there was no mistake in y'all coming
So
out.
sweet.
And then your mother and daddy, they asked about coming out, and I said, God, just
Well, you know, and God knew because right after Dad and then built that house, Dad was diagnosed with his cancer, and he knew that
Well, your mother need to be close.
be close, and so I mean, all things work out for
Work
the
out
good
for
of
the
those
good.
who wait and are trusting the Lord, and
That
so
is true.
we're grateful for
That's true.
for that opportunity. We're grateful that you gave us the
Oh, yeah.
opportunity to come and sit and talk to us, and we're gonna have this in our memory banks for our kids and their kids
That'd
and
be
your
good.
kids
That'd be good.
and grandkids
Yeah.
can see, and hopefully it won't be something that's lost.
Yeah.
You know, that those memories will be
Right.
held on to.
I gotta go feed you.
You know, I know it. My tummy is growling. I have not eaten anything, but anyway,
Thank you, Mr. Jimmy.
I appreciate it. Hey,
Right in your
I've loved
house.
it. I've enjoyed this.
yeah. We thank you guys for watching
we
us.
Just over the time have just gotten to where we don't do anything, and but we need to get back together. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you're always welcome on the
I
farm.
know that.
Always, it's yours still.
I know that. I appreciate it.
It's yours still. It'll always
I
be yours.
appreciate
So we just
And I love y'all.
you're so sweet.
Oh, Mr. Jimmy, I'm gonna give you a group hug. Oh,
Don't make me cry.
Sweet,
Sweet
sweet.
mascara running.
I'm already crying.
bless it. Listen, we appreciate you joining us today on our part 2 series of History of Our Land. And as our Stumpy always says,
A simple life is a much more enjoyable life. God bless you. We'll catch you on the next video.